Hello and welcome to another episode or first episode of the Rebranding CPMC podcast. I am MC, as always, joined by CP. Chris, it's been a while. What's going on?
It it's been a while. I'm glad to be back. We took the year off, recharge the batteries, get ourselves into the 21st century onto YouTube. Listen, Matt, I've got a mango hard seltzer here to celebrate the occasion. What could be better?
It would be better if it was a White Claw, Chris. We're trying to get sponsors here, and you're showing up with this bootleg version of a mango hard seltzer.
Listen, it was buy one get one free at Publix. You don't ignore those sales, my friend.
Yeah, you could set the White Claws aside when they got those kind of deals. You don't pass up on that with the hard seltzers. Anyway, man, it's good to be back. A lot of familiar faces in this league, Chris. We got the League of Champions here. I think we might have even done this league a couple years ago when we were last in business. But happy to be along with you guys tonight and show you guys a little bit about what we're going to be doing this year, what we have to offer. So we're going to get right into this, Chris. We're going to be ranking every team 12-1 and talking a little bit about each team, analyzing the roster, the picks, seeing what they should do, what they should not do. You were the one who broke this league down, Chris. What did you see from these teams?
Yeah, it's an interesting league because I think, you've got probably seven or eight teams I think that are legitimate playoff contenders. I think there's some teams at the top that are very strong. And some teams at the bottom that, obviously are rebuilding and, you know, we can guide them along the way with some moves that we think they should do. Maybe some how to navigate the draft a little bit. But I think there's kind of clear delineation between these teams here in this league, which is, that's nice to see.
All right, Chris, let's get right into it. We're going to start with our number 12 team. We've got Lucky Charms with some notable pieces right now. Obviously, it's a very incomplete team. Obviously, in the middle of a rebuild, I would assume. We got Trevor Lawrence, AJ Dillon, we got Dotson, Christian Watson may be worth a mention. Jacoby Myers, who I like this year, Chris. We got Algier down there, Darius Slayton. Who knows what we're going to get from him? Boy, we got Kyle Trask and Sam Howell. No two guys have benefited from this offseason quite like those two have. Kenneth Gainwell, we'll see what happens with him. Everybody wants Miles Sanders out of Philadelphia. Why? I don't know. All the man does is produce. Odell Beckham, we'll see what happens with him as well. Nico Collins, perhaps he's something. Khalil Shakir is a name I think we got to keep an eye on as well. Star powers down here on injured reserve and taxi squad with Trey Lance, Drake London, Rashad White, and the stud Brees Hall. Hopefully he comes back full bore from that injury. He's got 101 and 201. Chris, obviously going a certain direction here. I think the build is fine. We're just not ready to compete yet. So I could see why you've got this team 12.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. He just doesn't have the horses right now, right? He's got Trevor Lawrence. A major thing on this rebuild that it hinges on is Trey Lance, right? If for some reason, they go with Brock Purdy in San Francisco, this team's looking a lot shakier on their rebuild than if Lance is the guy, right? If Lance is the guy, we've got our two QBs locked in. We've got our 101 in Bijan Robinson, which we can either trade. I would advocate trading the 101 with this team. We've got too many holes here. It's not ready to compete. If we can get back a haul for 101, I'd do that all day, every day. I think that would just be a smart move for this team to really jumpstart its rebuild because he's got some pieces here that I think are good long-term pieces. Even Christian Watson and Jahan Dotson, I think they're a nice sort of second-tier duo at wide receiver, plus Drake London on the taxi squad. So we've got some pieces here, just not enough.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, I think the biggest mistake this team could do right now is draft Bijan Robinson at the 101. I just don't think it's ready. I don't think it's going to be ready in the next couple of years. And then you're wasting the shelf life of a running back, which we know are so valuable in terms of when they are in their prime. So, I mean, you said it perfectly here, Chris, with Trey Lance. I mean, if he's not the guy, this rebuild suddenly gets a whole lot more uphill than it is right now. But I think selling 101 for an absolute haul, which you can. I mean, we've seen the rookie 101 go in the top 15 picks of startups across the board. In fact, I don't think there's been a draft that we've done so far this offseason where it hasn't been one of the top 15 picks. So if we're already calling this guy a top 15 dynasty, and that may be conservative, you should be able to get an absolute mint.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think as the offseason goes along, it's only going to go higher in drafts, in my opinion, as people get a little bit more running back stir crazy and want that pick. So, yes, I do believe you can get an absolute mint. The other option here is to kind of hedge your bets on Trey Lance, move back a couple picks to the 2, 3, 4, 5 range, I a QB and plus get a little juice on top for Bijan Robinson. I think there's some room to play with here for Lucky Charms.
Chris, as heavy Mike Evans owners, you and me, what are the chances that Kyle Trask is the starting quarterback day one for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
0%. Next question.
0%. What do you think they do?
They'll get somebody. I don't know who. It won't be him. I could promise you that. It's not going to be Kyle Trask.
Do you think it's a last question rookie, or do you think they get one of these vets or bring back old Jabu Wins, Jameis Winston?
Oh my God. I pray every day that they bring back Jameis Winston. Oh my God. What a time to be alive.
Those were the good old days. Close your eyes and find old number 13 out there running deep. All right, let's get to our number 11 team, Chris. We've got DeWald 33, Dak Prescott, Nick Chubb, Adam Thielen, Dalton Schultz, George Kittle, Ramondre Stevenson, Evan Ingram. Love that he's back in Jacksonville. We actually ended up with a ton of shares of him early last offseason. That was a major hit for us. So I think that's going to be a nice little boost for him. Will this team have a QB2 in Jordan Love? I think that's going to be the major question mark for this team. Not a great question, but it's a question. Deebo Samuel sitting here on the bench as well. Not much going on IR. Chris, I've talked about Jerome Ford a ton. I love him in Cleveland. He was a blue chipper coming out of high school, went to Alabama, then found his way to Cincinnati. Very, very talented guy here. I wonder if he gets a shot. There's some talk about Chubb being out of Cleveland. Do they let Jerome Ford run with it? I don't know. I'm just saying he's a nice little stash. So I like that for this team. Looking at his picks, he's got 103 and 203 in the holster for this season. Oh, Chris, I like the other team better in terms of the build, but this team has a couple more pieces for this year for your ranking, I assume.
I mean, first things first, you've never once mentioned Jerome Ford's name prior, besides, 15 seconds ago to me. And never once you texted me about Jerome Ford. So please, who are you talking to besides me about Jerome Ford is my first question.
Listen, when we do drafts together and you check out at round 16, what do you think I'm doing from 17 to 31? I'm drafting the Jerome Fords of the world, and he's on probably 60% of our rosters.
Oh, wow. Jeez, I'm learning new things every second here on the CPMC podcast. No, but you're right. So I think this team has just slightly more points in the bank, as they say, for this season, as opposed to our prior team. But, going forward, I certainly like our number 12 team much better than this one. I think this team has sell written all over it. I think we've got to cash in on the year Evan Ingram had and the fact that he's going back to Jacksonville. I think that's a great sell. Ramondre Stevenson, we've seen some major hype with that guy in our early drafts, going as high as the fourth round in some. So I think if you can get that kind of value for him, even maybe slightly less, I think you take it all day. Nick Chubb, as productive as he is and as a quality of a player he is, if you can get a decent haul back for him, I sent him on his way. Dalton Schultz had a great season. I try to cash in on that. I mean, this team is just sell for me. Build around that 103. I'm not sure much else I'd build around though. Unfortunately, I like Dak still, but I'm not sure he fits the build here either.
Yeah, Chris, and we've talked about Debo's drop off as well. As Christian McCaffrey came to town last year, it was just a situation where Debo was still a little bit banged up. Just his role changed a little bit, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens next year if it is Trey Lance. I mean, do they want to give Debo running opportunities with Trey Lance, with Christian McCaffrey? We know they force fed the ball to Eli Mitchell at times as well. So, I just can't see Debo continuing at the rate that he was at a couple of seasons ago, or even early last season as well. So, Chris, 103 is an interesting situation here. I think you just got to stick and pick, right? And unless you get an absolute haul for it, I think you got to take your QB2 here, right?
Yeah, with this team, yeah, I want to have a QB to build around, especially if I'm gonna trade Dak and kind of cash in on his value still. I want to have a QB in the holster. Even if I'm going to keep Dak, I think I still want that QB, just because it just looks like a really good prospect and a really nice player to build around. So yeah, I'm going to stick and pick here unless I get my doors blown off with an offer.
Yeah, 103 may end up being the biggest value in this rookie draft, Chris. A lot of people have Bryce Young and CJ Stroud as the clear 1 and 2, 1A, 1B, if you will. And you're
Yep.
going to get likely the lesser of those two, if it's even lesser. So I think 103 is going to be a really nice spot to be in these rookie drafts this year. To take your quarterback. So I think he's going to be in a good spot to do that. Hopefully he's able to get off of Dak at some point and really get this rebuild going. All right, Chris, we've got to get to our number 10 team, and we are looking at BL Fettig here as our number 10 team. We've got Derek Carr, DeAndre Swift, Josh Jacobs, Garrett Wilson, Ty Hill. So decent names here, Chris. The problem is no quarterback, too. He's got Jameis, Carson Wentz, and Andy Dalton. Boy, if this was 2018, this guy would have a treasure trove of quarterbacks. Unfortunately, it's going to be 2024. Moving on from those guys. Brian Robinson, we'll see what happens with him. Isaiah Likely, I think, is an interesting piece. Kyle Pitts sitting here on injured reserve. Jelani Woods, man, there was games where they just force-fed him the ball. It was very, very strange. He's also sitting at 104, which is, I think, going to be a tough spot to be in this year's rookie draft unless we see something from Anthony Richardson, which we obviously have already this offseason. So interesting team here, Chris. What do we got?
Yeah, I think he belongs in the same tier as our prior two teams, but I think with the top end talent he does have, Carr, Swift, Jacobs, Wilson, Hill. I mean, that's a really nice five spot there for him. Plus Kyle Pitts gives him a six pack, which it's hard to overlook that, hard to put that below the two teams we just saw. So that's why I've got him sitting here, but man, no QB2, just so many holes across the rest of the starting lineup. No real depth here. Only one pick to work with. I mean, this is not a contender for me, and I think, again, I think we're looking at a roster here that besides Garrett Wilson, I'm looking to move off everybody. I'm looking to move off Carr if he picked up some value going to New Orleans, perceived value. Josh Jacobs coming off a huge monster year. I'd love to get off of him. Tyreek Hill is another guy who I think is going to continue to produce and will be a guy you can get quite a bit for. So, I'm happy to get off these guys because I don't think they fit the build here. I'd build around Garrett Wilson. I'd build around Kyle Pitts still, and that 104, and then just kind of move off everything else and see what I can acquire, see what I can build up in terms of capital and sort of shoot for that 2024, 2025 range, I think, with this team and see if I can build something targeting those years to be productive.
Yeah, Chris, along with that bankable production comes, pretty decent value in terms of trade opportunities. Ty Hill is a guy that we've seen go in the top 25 picks, I would say, pretty consistently. I'd say every single draft that we've done, it's been top 25, at least the first two rounds with Ty Hill. So you could still get a huge return for him. DeAndre Swift is a guy that is just plummeting in drafts right now, and we're going to scoop up every little bit of him as we can. I think we've done 6 drafts so far this offseason. We've got him in probably 5 out of 6. It's been really, really nice getting him where we have. So that's not great for trade value right now for this guy. I think that's going to improve as we get closer to the season. I can't imagine Detroit brings in another running back. And Swift is more than productive. Like you said, Josh Jacobs is a guy who's still being drafted pretty highly. So I think that's a guy that you can get a nice little return for. But man, you said it. Garrett Wilson's the guy to build around here. If Aaron Rodgers ends up going to the Jets, I'd move Wilson too because of that perceived jump in value as well. This team needs a lot of pieces, Chris. We're looking at filling 4 or 5 holes. I'm not seeing really much of anything on the bench to fill in on this team besides Isaiah Likely, David Bell. Maybe we'll see what happens with him. But this team needs a lot of pieces, Chris. The top end talent is there, but we've got to make moves. We can't stay pat with this team or else it's going to be like a 4 or 5 year turnaround.
Yeah, we've got to make some moves. We've got to pick up some extra draft capital any way necessary. I mean, just get that extra third thrown in, that extra second in any deal you do, just so you have more capital, more bites at the apple to try and build up some talent here.
All right, Chris, let's talk about our number 9 team. We've got Adam Too Old. Adam Too Old sitting here at number 9. Danny Dimes, Travis Etienne, Jalen Waddle, Juju Smith-Schuster, I think, is going to be in for an interesting offseason. See where he ends up. Started to be productive at points last year. Brandon Ayuk, Geno Smith. Boy, we've got Baker and Zach Wilson as the QB3, QB4. Looked like he had a nice situation last year. That didn't turn out too well. Juwan Johnson, love him out in New Orleans. We'll see what happens with his new QB, Derek Carr. Injured reserves got nobody. Taxi squad is nice to mention. Chris, we got Damian Pierce, Kenneth Walker Jr., and Malik Willis. We'll see what happens with him. He had a chance to shine last year and was miserable, absolutely horrendous. Draft picks, though, he's got 108, 102 as well, 202 and 212. 302, which could be something in this draft. So he's got some pieces. I think we've taken a step forward here, Chris. Still not a contender, but we've definitely taken a step forward.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think he's, kind of flirting with the playoffs, but not quite there yet, unless, his picks really pan out. That's what I like most about this team here as compared to our prior three, is he's got these three picks in the top 15, 102, 108, 202, plus that 212 sitting there, which is very nice. He's also got two QBs here, Matt, which, two locked in QBs with Danny Dimes and Geno Smith, both signing deals, which is great. So, he's got a very just kind of solid foundation here with Damian Pierce, Kenneth Walker, the QBs, Jalen Waddle, and Travis Etienne. So he's got that foundation here. Now he just needs to continue to build around him. I think that the picks are going to be huge. Can he hit on them? If he does, I think he's going to be headed in the right direction. A little bit of bad luck with Baker Mayfield and Zach Wilson not panning out, but I mean, I think there's enough talent here to say, along with the picks, that he's heading in the right direction. Not quite there yet, but heading in the right direction.
Chris, let me ask you about the quarterback situation. And indirectly the draft situation. What are you doing at 102 with this team, Chris? It's going to be a quarterback there. You got to believe with Robinson likely going at 101. Do you stick and pick a quarterback here, or do you say I'm fine with Geno Smith and Danny Dimes? What do you do at 102?
Yeah, I got to take a quarterback, man. I got to take a quarterback. I don't know, if Geno Smith has another rabbit in his hat for this year. He could be a guy who is one and done, kind of just got that contract and now he's done. Danny Dimes, I think he's a long-term guy, but are we sure? Are we sure? I think he's fine for fantasy. I do. But I'm not counting on anybody besides him. So if I can add, like you said, CJ Stroud, I think that's a guy you just kind of lock in and build around him as your quarterback for the next 10 years.
All right, Chris, let me ask you about Geno Smith. What would you be hoping for a return? Let's say he does want to go with a quarterback at 102. I got to believe that sends Geno Smith on the trade block. What would you be realistically hoping to get back for Geno?
It's so tough because we have a super flex league here. Geno was extremely productive last year. I mean, let's face it. But is anybody giving up a late first? Is anybody giving up 111, 112 for him? I don't think so. If I could get 203 plus another late second, early third, I think I'd have to consider that. Just kind of, and it would kind of depend how I see the rookie draft playing out. So I'd be checking out those mocks, just checking out what the projected picks are before I did that. And if not, I'm fine holding on to Geno too, just to kind of bridge the gap between him and my rookie quarterback.
All right, Chris, let's talk about our 8th ranked team. We've got RMG 8577. We've got Joe Burrow, Najee Harris, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Chris, I'm still going to mention him every time we do a show. He's going to catch on somewhere. He is our guy. It's got to happen.
As you should.
We got Cortland Sutton, Chris Godwin, Deontay Johnson, Michael Gallup, I think, is worth a mention as well. Tua sitting here at the super flex spot. Davis Mills seems like that project is over with in Houston. Kareem Hunt going to be interesting to see where he ends up as well. Boy, James Robinson, we always hated him, but I feel like he's starting to get just not a fair shake. And I just love to see him get a chance to produce the way he did out there in Jacksonville, at least be part of a timeshare somewhere. Allen Robinson, Hunter Renfro, Darnell Mooney as well. Chris, Jake Ferguson is a guy that a lot of people are saying take late in drafts in case Dalton Schultz is out of here. Pick situation, he's got 105, 205. I think we've taken another step forward, Chris, in terms of bankable production this year.
Yeah, and I can't believe you didn't mention Donovan Peoples-Jones after you sent me 7 texts about him yesterday. With rumors of Cleveland revamping their offense, and DPJ possibly benefiting from that. I like this team, Matt. I think we've sort of entered playoff contender territory here. I think he's got good top end talent with Joe Burrow and Najee Harris. Chris Godwin, forever productive, forever undervalued. Every Bucks wide receiver apparently just gets undervalued for their entire career. Tua, I think I still like Tua, despite the rumors of Lamar Jackson going there. He's going to land somewhere. I think there's a lot of production here on this team, just in general. Aside from Burrow, I don't think you have the superstars that you need to really be a title contender. But I think it's just a very solid, potentially, fifth, sixth ranked team that could get into the playoffs. Plus he's got this 105, which could be interesting for him. 205 could be a productive player. I like this team. I think it's a clear step up. It's not bad. I think it's just kind of lacking the top end talent that the teams above him have.
Yeah, Chris Kadarius Toney, a guy worth mentioning as well. A lot of guys saying he's going to be the wide receiver one out there in Kansas City. Not sure that really matters as long as Travis Kelce's still throwing on the uniform every single day. Chris, I think there's a wide range of outcomes for this team. I think it is fairly a steady floor, but I think the ceiling could actually be enormous here, Chris. If Kareem Hunt, guys like Hunter Renfro, Allen Robinson, Darnell Mooney, even a guy like Irv Smith, if one and a half of those guys pops this year, I think that puts this team into a real contender situation and might blow the ceiling off of what it's currently at to go along with a pretty safe floor. So I like where this team is at.
I do too. And I've been kind of since this afternoon, I've been kind of racking my brain trying to figure out a move for this team to make to kind of put him in a better position to contend, because I do think he has the potential to be contender. And Matt, I honest to God, I'm not seeing it. I don't know what the move is here. I think it's maybe selling off the 105 if you can get a decent, productive player for it, like a very solid player, obviously at that pick. But even that, I don't even love that. I mean, what are you seeing with this team in terms of a move to make?
No, I don't like that, Chris, because I think this team is built for the long haul as well. With Tua and Burrow being the quarterbacks of this team, I think that just opens up your window enormously. And then he's got these guys that are kind of in the middle, right? Najee Harris is heading into what, year 3 coming up. Chris Godwin's getting up there in age. Cortland Sutton, Deontay Johnson. I mean, these guys aren't, in year 1, year 2 anymore. So I wouldn't say this team is overly young. And I think it needs to start to trend in that direction to the extent that it's possible. And then the other big thing, Chris, is I was just saying these guys are wild cards, not real bankable production. Allen Robinson, Hunter Renfro, Darnell Mooney, even Kadarius Toney to an extent. So I'm not banking on that and being a locked in contender this year. So I'm kind of hedging my bets. I'm going to hang on to 105 if I could.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that's a reasonable take.
All right,
One of
Chris,
the
go
one
ahead.
of
What
the
were you going to
few
say?
I was gonna say one of the few reasonable takes out of you.
Oh my goodness, it's day one. Do not start with me right now. All right, let's check out our number 7 team halfway through, Chris. We got I'm the champ here sitting at number 7. Boys got Tommy Brady sitting there at quarterback. Better hope he returns. We got Aaron Jones, Saquon Barkley, who got tagged, DK Metcalf, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. We got Josh Allen sitting here at super flex. Derrick Henry sitting on the bench. He's obviously going to be thrown into this lineup. Robert Woods, we'll see where he ends up. See if he's got any juice left. Oh man, Paris Campbell, Chase Claypool, guys that just didn't really pan out over the past couple of years. Foster Moreau, boy, throwing him into lineups brings back some great memories from this past year with Darren Waller being out. He's got 112 as his only pick this year. I'd say he's probably in the same boat as the last team that we just saw. But he's starting to get a little bit older here, Chris. This looks like a team that we would have put together.
Yeah, I mean, listen, he won the title last year. Kudos to him, but there's a big old Tom Brady sized matzo ball sitting out there. I mean, what are you going to do with that? And that's so I just, I had him ranked fairly highly at the start, and I just kept seeing teams that I liked better than him. I mean, I don't think Josh Allen is going to hide all the warts on this team, right? Even putting, Derrick Henry in this line you still have a couple holes there. Paris Campbell, Chase Claypool, maybe you can put them in, but I sure as heck am not counting on them this year. No way. And we've got no solution for QB two. Maybe, I mean, maybe this is a team that wants to go after it again and trades that 112 right there for Geno Smith and a little juice or something like that, and just kind of give himself one more shot, one more bite at the apple with this team that undoubtedly is aging, So I think if I'm the champ, honestly, I might try and do that, trade that 112, get a little help at QB, or I can just pray Tommy Brady comes back. I mean, I don't know the answer.
That's always been the answer the past few years. Chris, I am racking my brain to figure out how the heck this team won the title last year. I mean, it's fine. There's some decent talent on it, but I'm not ready to say that this team is, going away the winner here. I think it's time to cash out, Chris. Let's get rid of Keenan Allen. Let's get rid of Mike Williams, Saquon Barkley, Aaron Jones, while we can. Even Josh Allen. I'm hitting the reset button. You're playing with house money at this point. So let's hit the rebuild button for my money. Derrick Henry. I don't think this team has enough to legitimately cut down the nets this year. And you're going to miss out on a Keenan Allen sell window, possibly a Mike Williams, a Barkley, Aaron Jones. I mean, these guys could be, out of the league almost in 2024, definitely in 2025. So let's cash out. Let's give these guys to the true contenders and start a little rebuild here for Champ.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I mean, he could go that way if he wants to. I think it kind of depends on his feeling about guys, like his running backs, Jones, Barkley, and Henry, and how he feels about, Paris Campbell and Chase Claypool maybe getting some more, being a little more productive. So, I think it could go either way with this team. I think we can use that 112 to kind of try and piece together for one more year, but I'm kind of with you here. I think I want to sell with this team more than I want to buy.
Chris, heading to our number 6 team, we got Romo the man. We got Jared Goff, Joe Mixon. What an offseason he's had. No more tumultuous than his. David Montgomery, talking about riding him out of Chicago. Devontae Adams, DeAndre Hopkins, Hollywood Brown, Dallas Goedert, Gabe Davis, Russ Wilson sitting there at Superflex. Guys on the bench. Deonta Foreman. We'll see what happens with him this year. Rashad Bateman may be worth a mention. Robert Tonyan. Taxi Squad, not a whole lot going on. We got 106, 107, and 109. Couple seconds kicking as well. I like this team here, Chris, but it just might be a middle of the road team.
Matt, I don't know if you saw my notes in the email, but I really like this team. This is my dark horse team to win the whole dang thing. And I'll tell you why. The volatility on this team, the upside on this team is just bonkers. I mean, the downside is like he could finish like 11th, but I think the upside here on this team, you mentioned Mixon. I mean, we've got Russell Wilson coming back with Sean Payton in tow now. Jared Goff, there's no sign. I mean, Detroit may stick with him. We don't know where DeAndre Hopkins is going to land. He may still be a Cardinal. I mean, he's got all these picks. It's insane. Like I think this team could just blow up.
Yeah, Chris. I think as well as blow up, I think it could also blow up in the other direction as well. I mean, Nook Hopkins might be searching for a home here. Jared Goff, they're talking about possible long-term solution at quarterback in Detroit. I mean, Joe Mixon's going to be playing in the penitentiary league at the rate that he's going with this offseason. Russ Wilson, you got to believe Sean Payton injects a little bit of something in that direction. But, man, I just can't see this thing happening. where this guy's cutting down the nets. I'd be shocked if he does. I wouldn't say it's overly deep. We do have a couple of nice picks in tow, but I'm going to disagree here with you, Chris. And actually, in terms of the direction, I might honestly hit the reset button with this team. As crazy as that may sound, imagine if you can sell Mixon for decent. DeAndre Hopkins, Devontae Adams, and those guys build around these picks. I think the picks that he does have are going to produce some quite a bit of value. It could be 3 wide receivers that you can build around as well. So I'd be okay getting off of Adams and Hopkins here and just kind of seeing what these rookies can do.
Yeah, I don't know. I like the direction he's in. I like his team, and I like that he's adding picks to it. So I think he can play this thing both ways.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what he decides. Maybe it's kind of a wait and see, and maybe he goes with see what happens week 8, week 9. But I like the team, Chris. I really do think it's a fine team. Pretty good build here by Romo the man. All right, Chris, let's get to our top 5. And at number 5, we got old Chewy here. Looking at Matt Stafford, Austin Eckler, Alvin Kamara. Speaking of the penal league, we got Cup, we got Evans, Cooper, Travis Kelce, Zeke Elliott, James Conner, Lockett, and Jimmy G sitting at Superflex right now with Ryan Tannehill being a possibility. We got Brandon Cooks. It's worth to mention Tyler Boyd. You can get him in like the 18th round of your startups right now. He's an absolute steal at that level. Injured reserve is empty. Taxi squad. Nothing going there. No picks really to speak of, Chris. I like this team. Might be our first complete team, save for that quarterback 2 spot, which is maybe in a little bit limbo right now, but I think something will come of Jimmy G and Ryan Tannehill. I like this team, Chris, but boy, it's getting old.
Yeah, I mean that's why he's kind of pushed down a little bit, right? We've got some question marks here with Zeke and Connor, Tyler Lockett. The QB2 situation is something to monitor, and his QB1 is kind of the oft injured Matthew Stafford that we're in. Kamara as well, huge question mark. Like there's just a lot going on here that has some red flags to it. But boy, there's still a lot of points to be had with this team. I can't see this team missing the playoffs. If it does, it will be due to injuries. There's a lot of points here on this team that they're going to score all season. I think it's a contender for sure, but slightly below kind of our top tier.
Yeah, I think that's fair, Chris. This team may be like half out of the league in 2024. And it's going to be a complete tear down and rebuild. The problem is you can't really sell these guys right now. Eckler's stock is dropping a little bit as he gets a little bit older. Alvin Kamara, don't know what's going to be going on with him. Cooper Kupp with his quarterback situation. Is Stafford going to be back? Is he healthy? Is Kupp healthy? We've got Evans, Cooper, both getting a little bit older. Travis Kelce, Zeke, Connor, all these guys. I think you've got to give one last go because you're not going to be able to rebuild with these guys. Let's give it one last go. And then just literally start from scratch in 2024.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. You kind of have to. You owe it to yourself here because this is probably, if Kamara shakes off that legal trouble, I think, he gives you one more really solid year. And then, the other aging players as well. I think, you just kind of have to do it, bite the bullet one more year, because you're just not going to get the value back that you would want for these guys who are still highly productive.
All right, Chris, we're going to stop right there. We're going to do the top 4 in a brand new show momentarily, running a little bit long here with our analysis of the first 8 teams. So we're going to sign off while you're breaking, turning over to the second show. Why don't you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button so you can always be updated when we post a new show. We will see you all in a bit.